Folks, it's 2025, and I have to tell you about something that started in 2024, but I waited. I wanted to watch the internet react. I wanted to listen to all the people with way more followers and an audience than me, which I'm okay with, by the way. But I wanted to see what they had to say before I weighed in on something, because I'm always coming from the branding angle, and this was more cultural and extremely sensitive of an issue that I wanted to hear all the opinions first before I weighed in from my specific branding and narration expertise. It's about to get uncomfortable. This won't be easy, but we have to do it. Let's go. The World Changed on Me is a new album by Fat Joe. But you want to know something? Before I get into a debacle of a podcast that he went on and he said some very choice words about the terms foundational Black Americans, calling people broke. He labeled out and specifically cordoned out one rapper named Lord Jamar and specifically attacked him. But before I get into all of that, because that created a cultural maelstrom that I don't think he anticipated. And also, I heard tanked his sales potentially because he didn't do that great first week, even though the numbers now in the music business are a little skewed in relation to streaming. But I wanted to talk about how the world changed on me before I get into Fat Joe and the debacle and how I see it branding-wise. And also, I'm going to get into a little cultural stuff because today is the last day of Kwanzaa, and as you see behind me, I'm about that Kwanzaa life. I have been a journalist for a long, long time. I went to Howard University.
You know.
And I went to School of Communications to be a journalist. All my internships in college were at Time Magazine. You know how big this was for me? I'm a kid from Harlem in the Bronx, and I got on in Time Magazine downtown in New York, and then also while I was back in school in D.C., I was able to work in the Time D.C. bureau. But nevertheless, I thought my entire career I was going to be a journalist. Of course, I love print journalism. I love magazines. But as we all know, these devices kind of killed the game. Either way, journalism and being impartial, fair and balanced in my approach of interviews, conversations, is what I was taught and the way I played the game. Even as I traversed into the fight business, and if you don't know my history, I also have a company called Fight Services, and we run the biggest fights on the planet for pay-per-view promoters and other smaller promoters. But the reality is, even when I entered the fight business, because I was so close to fighters and still am, as a person that ran back of house and did all fighter operations as a contractor, I was able to get the storylines from fighters and deliver that to certain fight publications. Shout out to Fight Magazine, shout out to UFC Magazine, shout out to everybody I've ever written for in the fight business, the Shadow League, all of that. And I'm still a member of the Boxing Writers Association of America. I'm going to pop my own collar for that. That was not easy to do. And additionally, I have a Hall of Fame vote for the International Boxing Hall of Fame. Why am I telling you all of this? It is not to brag. It is because, now getting to the actual point, the world changed on me when everybody became a microwavable journalist. God damn, I finally said it out loud. Yeah, I'm talking about you. I'm not mad at you, by the way, but you don't know nothing about journalism if you microwavable. And I only eat organic, and I like the stove. Listen, at the end of the day, people go to school to become journalists. Now, because of the proliferation of the cell phone, these cameras being a lot cheaper, and the internet becoming everybody's first go-to for information, everybody has decided to provide news and mainly opinion. It's like everybody's an op-ed columnist that nobody asked for. You used to have to go to the New York Times. You used to have to go to certain publications to listen to people's opinions who were actually experts in the field of choice, not because of their expertise based on experience, but by research and doing the due diligence of journalism, which is speaking to actual experts, which allow you to deduce a conclusion based on having and gathering the facts. But what's been happening nowadays are that people who are entertainers have decided to convert their entertainment skills into the art of performative journalism. Woo! Nice. You never heard it said like that before, did you? And you can cut my angles back and forth if you want, by the way. because I want you to get every angle of what I'm saying right now, because I'm talking to you. All those who enjoy all these platforms, I'm not mad at you. I love podcasts, especially the visual ones on YouTube. I love them. But make no mistake, I'm never confused. There is performative journalism stemming from entertainers finding a new lane for revenue, and then there's journalism. And I think what happens in life is that differentiation is being blurred based on the style. My expert opinion I want to talk about is a podcast-styled barbershop talk concept created by an ex or current, I don't know, I don't follow the culture of battle rap like that, sir, please excuse me, of battle rap, which are, combative artists that are rapping at each other and saying crazy things and all of that. His name is Math Hoffa. He has a barbershop-style podcast called My Expert Opinion. I like the show. I think culturally it's amazing. I like the fact that they put it in the barbershop because there's a certain way your ears perk up and listen differently and feel like you're having a true essence of an ear hustle when you're listening to people talk in the barbershop. Everybody knows that. So I love the fact that he put his style of conversation in a barbershop while talking to rappers. I think it's awesome, and personalities. But what I will say is that at the end of the day, this is not journalism. This is performative entertainment in the style of journalism. Now, I will give the show some respect for trying to add actual journalists into the mix. It used to be the rapper Math Hoffa mixed with one guy who's a journalist, and then there were other folks who were kind of like experts or people that have experience in the music industry, and because they're dealing with mainly rappers, they wanted to get those experiences out in the form of questions and answers and people sharing experiences so we can all learn something. And I think that was a great thing. Since then, he's now added 2 journalists that I know about. There might be 3. I apologize to the brother if that I'm thinking is a journalist, but I don't know. But I know 2 of the folks have said they're journalists and have worked for publications that I've even worked for, not at the same time. Shout out to the Source magazine. I was there, not under their tenure, though. Sorry, I missed that era. But Math Hoffa has said he's not a journalist. Now, stepping a little bit away from Math Hoffa's show, there's other shows like a show called Drink Champs, featuring the rapper Nori or Noriega. There's another show called It Is What It Is, featuring rappers Cameron and Mace. They do sports. Again, everything is in the style of journalism. There's a host desk, there are guests, they're asking questions. But I need you to understand, when looking at these shows, you must realize this is not a journalistic opportunity. This is a marketing opportunity for the artist or the athletes to be promoted for whatever product, place, thing, or personality they're trying to sell to the public through other personalities that already have gained some level of fame from being artists in the music business. Does that make any sense to you? Cameron, rapper. Mace, rapper. I don't know if the word former applies to these guys yet. I think they all still rap, but they're rappers. Nori, rapper. Don't know if he still raps, but he's a rapper. Math Hoffa, battle rapper. That is a very important distinction than a journalist, period. And with that being stated, Fat Joe went to the Math Hoffa My Expert Opinion show, and he labeled a lot of things that were really derogatory and toxic to the culture. He spoke about the foundational Black Americans, F.B.A.s, and called them broke N-words. He used the N-word, and I'm not going to say it here because there's no need. We're in 2025, and we're all going to do better. But he used the N-word profusely. And culturally, because his skin is a lighter shade, although he is from Puerto Rico, although he comes from poverty in the Bronx, where hip-hop started, and he was angry at Lord Jamar, a hip-hop artist from the famed group Brand Nubian, who's now turned into a podcaster, internet personality. He felt the need, because Lord Jamar stated that Puerto Ricans were not integral in the creation of hip-hop. He felt the need to disparage Lord Jamar, and also because Lord Jamar, I believe, claims to be a foundational Black American. We'll get more on what that means in a second. That these are broke N-words because he didn't like what Lord Jamar had to say. Now, what is a foundational Black American, so we can have some context here? A foundational black American is a person that believes that their blackness is rooted in America and that their ancestors created this country, were intermingled with Native Americans, intermingled with Africans brought on slave ships to be enslaved, and have created a homogenous group that emanated from one tenet of that tree that started in the Americas. I have no idea, my audience, how much you understand, how much you understand about geography, but it has been stated multiple times that at one point, all the land masses that make the continents were one. And then they started to separate. And then that created Africa, North and South America, Europe, Antarctica, all the like, Australia, whatever. Foundational black Americans believe they never left North America. They didn't branch off into that sect that floated off and became Africa. They are darker complected, and they are based here. When you look at the Olmec heads and you look at a lot of the statues in Mexico and other parts of South America, these are the things that they use to root the belief in this. And the intermingling that happens when you're crossing continents between what I would call now South Americans or Taino Indians or Indians, just all the aboriginals, quote unquote, of the Americas. Foundational black Americans believe their sect is not identified the way it needs to be in this country due to intermingling, right? So they like to separate themselves from Africans, separate themselves from Native Americans, and state that they are their own thing. Whether Fat Joe knew this or not, he said foundational black authority. That is an organization. That is not a lineage. Foundational black American is a lineage, not an organization. That distinction must be made. But regardless, because he said he didn't know, he spoke on things he didn't realize, and the backlash was fast and furious. On top of that, while intermingling the thought patterns and the cultural slang that comes from poverty, which is the N-word, typically used with a G-A on the end, not a G-E-R, with the N-word, it was confusing to the audience about his intention when he's talking about foundational black Americans. So I want to break all this down so that we can stop the confusion and creating division and whatnot. Foundational black American is a lineage. But I want to say that through the black cultural experience, homogenized black cultural experience, intermingling of Native Americans, of Africans that were enslaved in the Americas, the Caribbeans and whatnot, poverty based on redlining, Jim Crow laws, and just overt racism for a country that never intended for black folks of all the homogenized cultures to be free and were used as chattel slavery and chattel labor. This country never intended for these folks to have a place in this country in its early founding. That's why people died. That's why there were revolts. That's why civil rights happened after emancipation, clearly, many years after emancipation, right? But that's why emancipation, when it happened, unfortunately sent Lincoln to his grave based on what the dire consequences for the status quo were once people were free. Now, I know you didn't ask for a history lesson, but I feel the need to sometimes delineate confusion here. When you say the N-word with the G-A on the end, that is poverty conversation. Clearly. Why do I say that? Because when you look at a light-skinned Puerto Rican person that grew up around black individuals in an impoverished environment, everybody's an N-word colloquially. That's not my choice, by the way. That's just facts. Poverty mentalities create impoverished results. Disparaging terminology as terms of endearment typically emanate from poverty because it is a relationship rooted in a communal struggle. Damn, I'm blowing your mind today, huh? Y'all be so confused when people talk, and I know exactly where the confusion lies. So I'm gonna break it down for you because I'm actually nice. And it's not gonna be comfortable. The world changed on me. Why? Well, for Fat Joe, what that means is he's talking about being a celebrity is a liability now. And it is. Being famous as a black person, person of color, impoverished person that now has a lot of money or is marketed as being wealthy or rich or whatever that is, because we don't know the truth. It is entertainment, folks. Yeah, there's a target on your back. I mean, completely. Now, don't get me wrong. We don't know how much of this is self-motivated. We're going to let those who are currently incarcerated, and you know who I'm talking about, Baby Oil.
Hey, yo.
We're going to let those trials and tribulations play out the way they're supposed to before we start making accusations. But what I will say is, if you are a famous person and you are in the hip-hop space, you probably feel very vulnerable right now in relation to the American legal system. It ain't a game for you right now. Where before it was about Bentleys and bottles, now it's about lawsuits and slander. Completely. So, to that end, Fat Joe titled his latest album, The World Changed on Me, because he used to be able to run around fancy-free as a celebrity. Yeah, I'm on my Don King making everything rhyme right now, but I'm nice, but we're going to keep going. Listen. Here's where I just told you the world changed on me as a journalist. Everybody has a platform to pretend to be a journalist, even standing adjacent to journalists in these moments of entertainment value, and act like they're journalists by proxy. But I'm telling you, that's a falsehood. So, to those who want to get mad at Math Hoffa for not holding Fat Joe accountable for saying the N-word multiple times in a room full of black people, some that might consider themselves F.B.A.s, Foundational Black Americans, by the way, a lineage, not an organization. We're going to make sure we keep saying things so you remember. I want to say that Math Hoffa doesn't have the acumen, the journalistic chops to differentiate a conversation with another person with an impoverished mentality, speaking cultural mores of impoverished culture, versus a journalist that's holding him accountable to get all the information impartially. Why do I know this? Because I'm not a genius. Because he said in his conversations to the camera after that, when he heard the backlash, that if it wasn't for Fat Joe, he wouldn't have the platform he has right now with that show on YouTube. Fat Joe's been there before, and I guess his numbers spiked with Fat Joe's appearance. He feels indebted to Fat Joe for coming to his show, and he's a battle rapper pretending to be a journalist through an entertainment vehicle. So why would he hold him accountable? This is about monetizing content, not about getting to the facts, the truth, and holding people accountable and being impartial. You can't be impartial when you feel like the person you're interviewing and you have a business relationship rooted in views. Do you hear how crazy I'm talking to you right now? I know what I'm talking about. I'm nice. And I'm going to make sure y'all start to understand what's actually happening today and stop being so confused. You keep crossing culture with journalism and impartiality. But you can't do it. You cannot extract his impartiality and expect him to have the same chops as a journalist. When I interview people, I don't care if they like me, dudettes. I don't care. My job is to represent all sides of the information with no side being mine. As a black man, whether I label myself as foundational Black American, Black, African American, African in America, American born African, all of these different derivatives from our homogenized experience in this country, which has been lost and degraded purposefully by those who didn't want us to have knowledge of self, I have to put all that to the side in an interview. And if it ruffles the feathers of my subject, well, I went to Howard University for them to teach me to get over that part and be brave enough to ask the hard questions. Those who know me will tell you, I talk about the pioneers of journalism in the black experience that I love, like Tony Brown's Journal. I love this guy. I was a young nerd. I love the guy. I think he's amazing. I still think about the guy. If you don't know what I'm talking about, leave our page and in YouTube, search Tony Brown's Journal. I will not be offended. But you will definitely understand me as a journalist from watching that. But everybody that watches these quote-unquote podcasts, which I'm going to call entertainment vehicles in a performative journalistic format, is expecting something that's not there. This is entertainment. It's just like hip-hop. You have pillars of hip-hop, and people focus on rap and the commercialization of rap, which is about money, not culture. Hip-hop is a culture, and cultures receive a certain level of respect. Commercial rap is a business, and it's become a vehicle to sell you everything: cars, liquor, clothes, jewelry. And I'm not mad at people that come from other parts of poverty and find commercial rap as a vehicle to find levels of respectability they couldn't find in their former lives. Shout out to all the strippers turned rappers. Shout out to all the drug dealers turned rappers. But we cannot forget there's a difference between culture and hustling. You see that? When you blur the line and think that the hustle is the culture, you're trying to obliterate things that were created before hustle became the priority. Corporatization of culture is always a problem. I have a phrase that I like to use. Capitalism corrupts creativity. Why do I say that? Because the moment capital gains are placed on creativity, your creative impetus shifts from being creative for creative sake to being creative for currency's sake. And currency, unless you're paying yourself, is coming from those who are watching and receiving the entertainment, the journalism, the whatever. And there's no way I can remain impartial if I'm trying to get a check out of your viewing pleasure. So, to that end, for the culture to understand fully, yes, hold Math Hoffa accountable as a black Bahamian interviewer from Brooklyn that didn't check a Puerto Rican man for saying the N-word if he looked at him as separate and apart from the impoverished culture with which he probably subscribes to. If it was a foundational black American conversation, hold Math Hoffa accountable for not understanding what foundational black American is in relation to Fat Joe saying something about it. I think he was probably blindsided, which is why he didn't know what to say, and he still feels in debt to Fat Joe for coming to his show consistently to promote his projects. In terms of Fat Joe, and that's mad, I want to put that to the side because I'm not mad at that guy. I think we should give certain people grace who are not journalists. To the journalists that were in the room, look, at the end of the day, the lines are blurred now for us all, which is why I don't really like being a journalist no more. I'd rather be a guy that educates you on branding now. I'm good. Because once Donald Trump said fake news, the game was over, man. The game was over. Because now fake news is the news. And his validation of that point, when talking about it about those excoriating him for the things he said, everybody just realized nobody cares what's real or what's fake. It's all entertainment, and I can get money from it. Once I realized that's where we're at, my love for journalism, I'm not going to say has ceased, but I stopped thinking that I could have a fair and impartial and balanced perspective that would allow me to pay my bills. Preach! And that goes for me and all the journalists, because y'all know what I'm talking about. It's so hard to get a bag now using the talents that we thought we incubated all this time. But you know what, guys? There's avenues for our skill sets now. We've become podcasters. We've become publicists. We've become brand strategists and brand managers. We took our ability to create a narrative and we're using it for the positive still. The art of journalism might be fleeting, but the journalists have found other homes to use their talents and skills, unfettered and uncorrupted, hopefully. Hopefully. To Fat Joe, because of your insistence on utilizing the N-word, I must break down for you that if you're going to speak with an impoverished mindset and talk to the impoverished community, you cannot move around with wealthy ideals. You cannot. Because you're confusing the audience. And this is where I'm acting as your unofficial brand manager. You can't show me Bentleys and Maybachs and then say the N-word profusely when you're chilling with people that are teaching you all about how to maximize ETFs, Roth IRAs, buy gold, and move around in ways that allow you to become wealthy. You have entered another echelon that has nothing to do with Soundview projects in the Bronx, Harlem, Brooklyn, and all of that, sir. You are in a different place. You have to graduate the way you speak and think. There's a guy, he's a rapper, his name is Tony Yayo, and again, this is for the culture, so I'm talking to all my rap heads. He's with G-Unit and 50 Cent. They call him the most loyal rapper or adjacent to the celebrity friend you can have, right, with 50 Cent. Tony Yayo is the most loyal guy ever to 50 Cent. But he goes on another platform on YouTube and talks a lot of street knowledge when he, along with 50 Cent, have learned way more than that. And when 50 Cent was asked on another show, I think it was The Breakfast Club, about what do you think about this guy going on this platform on YouTube and constantly talking about things that are, you know, in essence, moving backwards for somebody that's already now made a lot of money and done bigger things and has seen and met bigger people. He said, it makes me, this is what 50 Cent said, it makes me realize maybe I need to download him some new information. That statement is extremely poignant. Why? Because 50 Cent knows he's not thinking like the kid from Queens that got shot anymore. He might have PTSD from that moment. He might have PTSD from poverty. Most people do. But he realizes he had to elevate past that perspective to become wealthy. And he needs to help his friend download new information to join him in the promised land of prosperity. Fat Joe, do the same, sir. You're confusing us because you're not poor anymore and you're using poverty cultural tenets. Get your mind off the gutter, Joe. We don't need it. Especially during the time now, since the world, as your album is titled, has changed on you. The world changed on me. I thought journalism was my ticket, and I had to learn other skills when journalism became extremely corrupted. So my ethos, my edict, my hope, my whatever, to anybody within the sound of my voice listening is give grace to those in places and spaces that look trusting for news, because they're not that. They're entertainment. If they have no resume that denotes journalism, stop thinking it's a journalistic platform and just sit back, eat your popcorn, and be entertained by the entertainer. To folks who have graduated out of poverty, stop talking with impoverished language. It confuses the audience that you've taught to be aspirational. And to everybody else in between, understand one thing. If you're branding yourself on these platforms, it's always been as serious as it was. The world really hasn't changed, Fat Joe. You're just waking up to the realization that more is expected of you. My name is Red Butler. This is Brand Power Direct. Evolution season, baby. 2025. I'm taking no prisoners. If you're ready, jump on board. Brand Power Direct, the website, the series, the education, the conversations, and way more coming soon into a city near you. Yeah. I'm so fired up, baby. Yeah. We in the jungle, so I wear leopard. Peace.